Hi, I'm Zach Singerman, and welcome to the Gen Z Jews Learning from Leaders series. In this series, I interview people on the topics of anti-Semitism, Israel, and leadership. Today, my guest is Sahar Amsalem, who is an Australian student in Brisbane City. Thank you, Sahar, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Zach, and giving me this opportunity and platform to talk about, Jewish life in Australia and what it's like to be a leader.
So, since most of my audience is American, could you tell us a little bit about the Australian Jewish community?
Yeah, so the Australian Jewish community is quite large. It's one of the largest in the world. We have a population of about 112,000 Jews. But where I live, we have like a very minute population. I think we have about like 1,000 Jewish people. So I live in the state of Queensland in Brisbane City, and most of the Jewish people are located in cities like Sydney and Melbourne. You might have heard of them, like Sydney Harbour Bridge, things like that. And they're located in the states of Victoria and New South Wales, respectively. So I would say that in those different states and in those cities, Jewish life would be very different to how it is where I live. So where I live, there's not a lot of like visibility or not a lot of knowledge about Jewish issues and Jewish people. So we're kind of an extreme minority. Like I know other universities in with as larger populations of Jewish students, for example, they take into consideration things like Shabbat when doing exam block or certain things like that. So there's a bit more consideration there. But obviously, because we're such a small community, many people don't really know about us. Mm-hmm. So it can be difficult that way in terms of, being able to openly, safely express your Jewishness can sometimes be difficult.
So, in the United States and Europe, anti-Semitism has really increased lately. What's the situation in Australia?
So the situation in Australia is exactly the same. The latest statistics I have is only from 2019. We did do a workshop, was it earlier last year? Or was it the beginning of this year? We do a workshop every year for the Australasian Union of Jewish Students. We do a couple, but some of them focus on anti-Semitism and how to tackle that issue. And the statistics from 2019 was that it increased by 30%. However, recently, especially this year, it increased by an overwhelming amount. I'm not exactly sure how much, but the reported incidences did increase. A lot of it had to do, obviously, with the Israel and Palestinian conflict, as well as COVID-19 and kind of the same anti-Semitic rhetorics being repeated, like, oh, it's like the Jews' fault, et cetera, et cetera. So we've had issues like vandalism, obviously a lot of online anti-Semitism, even like physical and verbal altercations and those kinds of things as well. We've also had like people vandalizing synagogues. Like even where I live, we have a very small Jewish community. So we only have like we have like two synagogues, but one proper like synagogue where you can see straight away like, oh, that's a synagogue. That's a Jewish place of worship. Not just a hole or something like that, right? And recently they hung a Nazi flag outside, like right near our synagogue as well. And another thing that happened too, obviously BDS, the very famous movement that has a lot of traction, called University of Queensland. They recently were handing out flyers, encouraging like boycotts of Israel. And it's like, if you vote for our like socialist group, because I don't go to that university, I don't know like the political situation there, but they're like, oh, if you vote for our group, we'll ensure that we kind of like subscribe to that BDS kind of, it was like part of their vote for us, we'll do this. And additionally too, there were some issues with like online when the Israel-Palestinian conflict was really coming about in the heat. A lot of like anti-Semitism, especially with orders, so Australasian Union of Jewish Students, in Monash University, they had an event that they had to cancel because someone from the government, like a person from the government, and so much hate was being put under, and someone posted a photo of Hitler, and then people underneath it were like, he didn't finish his dog, we should bring him, and things like that. And I think one of the people that commented works for like the Department of Education, so it was pretty like extreme for no reason. God. Yeah, and many things like that. And as you know too, with a lot of the protests, a lot of the pro-Palestinian protests were less focused on supporting Palestinians and helping the Palestinian people and things like that. They were more focused on like the Jews are bad, Jews are evil, which doesn't really do with furthering your cause. So it's like it wasn't even a pro-Palestinian protest, but more an anti-Israel protest.
Exactly. So recently you've taken on leadership roles at your college, which is Queensland University of Technology. And you've also taken up leadership roles with international organizations such as the World Jewish Congress and the Global Jewish Pen Pal program. So after COVID, people have felt very isolated. How do you in Australia connect with these organizations across the globe, and what roles have you done?
So for me, I also felt kind of similar. Like I thought as soon as COVID would happen and there was all those lockdowns, nothing was going to happen. It was just like everything was just going to die down. There was going to be no opportunities. Nothing was going to happen. Obviously, people do innovate in difficult times. So it's kind of weird that I did that coming as an economics student. Obviously, people innovate. Obviously, people adapt. And for me, I was kind of like, oh, I really don't want to be stagnant. So I saw that everything around me was adapting and innovating. So I was like, oh, why not me as well? I think it's very easy to feel isolated and overwhelmed, especially when there's so much going on and you still, even though working from home and doing things like that has made things easier with all the stress that's going on in the world, people still do have commitments that they need to meet and deadlines and things. So I think it's really difficult to sometimes keep a level head. But I think the best thing is to find positive ways where you can express your creativity or express things that make you happy or things that interest you is what I recommend. And I think now more than ever, because everything is on technology, it's a lot easier to kind of connect with those different opportunities and things that are available. So in the World Jewish Congress, I had no idea what to expect. I saw that they had internships, and I saw that they had internships for the development team. So they kind of work with charities and things. Well, they basically work with major donors. So they're kind of the charitable aspect in terms of fundraising for the WJC. That's their arm, and that's where they specialize in. So for me, I was kind of like sending it out into the void. I had no idea what would happen because I'm all the way in Australia and I'm thinking, okay, like hopefully this goes somewhere. I don't know. They're a big organization. And obviously I know about the WJC because part of all these other Jewish organizations, but still, like in my mind, it's like very far away, obviously, not just logistically far away. So it was kind of one of those things where you just like give it a go and you go for it. So doing the internship has actually been so amazing. So I work in doing basically research. I mostly do research, but I also work with other people on the teams to do different like administrative things and stuff like that. And the development team, so amazing. The culture in the WJC is really great and I love them so much. They're very caring, but they also really value your opinion. Even though I'm an intern and I'm just like randomly there, they're like, oh, what do you think? What's your input? So I think if you are interested in joining an internship and you're passionate about Jewish issues, I know they have a variety of internships. I'm passionate about charities, fundraising, and those kinds of things, volunteer. So that's why I went to the development arm, and also it was virtual. So I was like, hey, that works. The same with the Global Jewish Pen Pal program. I only found out about that opportunity because Maddie Jackson, she originally started it. She's amazing. She's so kind. And she's from actually Ohio in America. What's it called? I don't know America well, just going to be honest. She's from Ohio? Yes. And she basically messaged our Facebook group on August, and she was like, oh, I have this pen pal program that I've started to connect and have like Jewish people all over the world connect people about Jewish life and COVID, and it would be really great. Would you guys love to advertise it? And I happened to be reading, the messages that we get to our group, and I was like, yes, can we do this? Like obviously, checking with everyone else that they want to share that information. And then I ended up signing up. And then Maddie asked if she was basically recruiting people for the leadership team. So I work as basically, my role is to find different organizations so that we can get more global Jewish pen pals from more than kind of just expand our reach and kind of get more people on board because it's such a great program. And so that's kind of how it started. So I feel like with a lot of the roles and things that I find, you kind of just fall into it. You see an opportunity and then you kind of like, oh, I should do that. I should go for it. So I think that's kind of how it happens.
So What lessons have you learned through this experience, and what advice do you have for Gen Z as future leaders?
So I think lessons that I've learned is if there's something that you enjoy doing and that you like doing, try and pursue that, because it's a lot easier when you're writing a cover letter or you're applying for something to actually talk about something you're passionate in instead of just forcing yourself to do something, because it can feel when you're not genuine. And I think being genuine and showing people how what you're willing to do for the position that you want to get. So if you say like, oh, like with the Global Jewish Pen Pal program, I found it really interesting and I love learning about Jewish life and I love being a part of it and I like being a pen pal. So for me, I was kind of like, oh, well, I just love everything about it. And because I knew so much, it was kind of easy to go through that process. So I think it's like my biggest advice is start off locally in your community, and whatever it is that interests you, go through those avenues and try and make a network of mentors who can kind of give you advice and teach you different things and skills, because I've learned so much from just people around me telling me different things who are more experienced than me and more skilled than me. And then from there, that kind of shapes how I am as a leader and how I progress and pursue different opportunities. And then from there, so if you start off locally, then you can kind of expand, because you can say, well, these are all the things I do in my community locally. And then you can reach for those harder to reach or higher opportunities like the WJC. Additionally, I would say to keep applying. Just apply everywhere. Everywhere that resonates with you, go for it. I saw something, there was some quote, I don't remember where I got it from, but they said the answer is never no. It's yes, wait, there's something better. So sometimes when you get upset that you didn't get an opportunity, you find out, oh my God, there's something way better that I can do now. Mm-hmm. So you just wait and it'll just kind of fall into place.
And is there anything else you'd like to share with Gen Z?
I don't know. I think that's it.
Well, Miss Amsalem, thank you so much for being here today. It was great having you.
Having me.
Thank you. Bye.